Alina and James have been married for 3 years. In the beginning, their relationship was filled with love, and they cherished every moment spent together. However, as time went on, the routine of everyday life came, which led to minor problems and getting used to each other. Unfortunately, Alina began to feel some disappointment in James. The turning point came one evening when they were approached by a group of bullies during a walk. Alina expected James to defend her, but he chose to politely handle the situation rather than confront the bullies. Feeling cheated, Alina voiced her disappointment to James, who justified his actions by explaining that he was outnumbered and wanted to avoid escalating the situation. Alina couldn't resist Riley suggesting that James lacked the qualities of a real man. As time went on, Alina became increasingly frustrated with little things like bad jokes, neglecting household chores, and excessive television watching. She no longer found reasons to admire James, and her respect for him waned. James, on the other hand, was puzzled by Alina's sudden coldness towards him. He saw no problem in their relationship since Alina kept her feelings private, but he was puzzled by her changed behavior. He attributed her oscillation between talkative and non-talkative to hormones and lack of sleep. But then the situation took a strange turn. When his wife came home later than usual, citing that she had been out with friends, he sensed something amiss. One morning during breakfast, he asked his wife, "What are your plans for today after work?" Her reply, "Katya invited me out for a drink," struck him as dismissive. "Actually, I was thinking of taking you to the movies," he replied without enthusiasm, annoyed by her tone. His wife was staying late that night, so he decided to call her, but found her phone turned off. Then he contacted Katya, assuming she was with his wife, but was surprised to learn that Alina had not shown up in months. It was strange that his wife had lied that she had come to see her friend and wasn't expecting her. Did she really not care if he found out the truth? When the wife finally got home, her husband gave her a scandal by telling her about his failed attempt to call her. "My phone was dead, and I didn't have a charger," she explained. "I called Katya, but you weren't there," he informed her, watching her reaction carefully. She was surprised at first, then looked at him thoughtfully. "And which Katya did you call?" she asked, trying to distract herself from the conversation. Indeed, he had completely forgotten that his wife had several friends with the same name. Fortunately, his wife managed to avoid this situation by saying, "Let me put the phone on charge," and handed the phone to her husband. Gritting her teeth, she went to change into more comfortable clothes and remove her makeup. Meanwhile, James waited patiently for her phone to work again. As soon as the phone turned on, James began studying the incoming and outgoing calls. Nothing suspicious, just friends, co-workers in their department, her mother and sisters. No unfamiliar names or questionable identities. The messages were clear too. However, James couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more behind it. He decided it was time to dig deeper. The next day, he requested a call report from his wife's phone operator. And that's when he came across an interesting clue. There was a repeated number that wasn't visible in the phone's call log. It seemed that his wife had purposely deleted calls with this person. James decided to investigate further and looked into a special application where he found pictures of the man. The face seemed incredibly familiar to him. After a while, he remembered exactly who it was. Arthur, a colleague of his wife's with whom she had worked closely over the years. James decided to contact Arthur and asked for a meeting. Surprisingly, Arthur agreed without hesitation. Could it be that her husband had misunderstood the situation and Arthur was not his lover at all? When they met in the evening, James couldn't help himself and immediately asked the question that had been bugging him. He inquired about his colleague's romantic relationship with his wife. "She hasn't told you yet?" wondered Arthur sincerely. The husband became worried. and asked, "What do you mean she hasn't told me?" Arthur clarified, No, not in that sense. She informed me that the relationship between you two was already over. She was planning to confess our affair to you, which would have led to a breakup. I insisted that our relationship should not remain a secret. They began after she informed me of the divorce. Despite the seriousness of the situation, her husband couldn't contain his laughter. "What is this? My wife has deceived both of us. She made each of us believe that we were her only ones. She hinted to me about divorce, but never initiated the conversation. Meanwhile, her lover thought he had a chance because she envisioned herself almost free to be with him." That evening, Arthur and James went to her husband's house together. Alina, meanwhile, was fiddling in the kitchen, cooking something. "Darling, I have come with a guest, and we need to discuss something with you," shouted the husband from the threshold. The wife was unspeakably surprised when, stepping out into the hallway, she saw her husband and lover together in her house. She tried to pretend that everything was all right, but Arthur shattered the idyllic atmosphere. His voice snapped to a question. "Did you lie to me? You didn't say anything to your husband." She pretended not to understand the situation. Here her husband intervened. "Let me explain. You have been caught in a double lie. To me as your husband, and to your lover who thought everything was already settled. It's time for you to pack your things and leave my house," Arthur added, "and never come near me again." The woman froze in place, unable to realize that everything was unfolding before her eyes. Even though she thought she had foreseen every scenario, her husband was one step ahead of her. James began to pressure Alina to pack her things, but she hesitated, making weak excuses, but he paid no attention. He was amazed at her selfishness in deceiving two men at the same time, and Arthur could feel his deep pain at such a betrayal. James remained calm and composed, determined that traitors had no place in his home. If his wife chose another, she could leave without objection. He initiated divorce proceedings with Alina, and Arthur stopped all communication with her. She was very sorry for her act, since thanks to a curious coworker, rumors about it spread among colleagues. As a result, she became ashamed in front of everyone, and she was forced to quit and look for a new job. An unexpected turn of events was that neither her husband nor her lover tried to contact her. Men's pride is very fragile, and by playing with other people's emotions, the wife learned a hard lesson.